Boy, because we've only got 2 games today, and that is very different than yesterday. What's going on, everybody? NBA Strategy Show, Thursday, November 9th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Vivid Picks. Lots to talk about for today. Just kidding. Only 2 games, Milwaukee and Indiana, Atlanta and Orlando. That's all we've got. But we'll have all the content you could possibly want. We also have a very fun Friday slate. It's another tournament day with 7 or 8 games, something in that neighborhood. So we have a light at the end of the tunnel. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter at Josh Engleman and at ShipMyMoneyDFS. Adam, what's going on?
Yeah, how's it going? Wish we had more games today because yesterday was really, really annoying, and I'd like a real slate to bounce back.
Yeah, I'd at least want 4. 4 is my minimum of like, okay, I can handle that.
I thought you said at least we have 4. I was just like,
no,
nope,
no, not at all. Anything interesting from you yesterday?
No, I tweeted out one lineup that just really pissed me off. Like, obviously, nothing really bothers me in DFS anymore. I've been playing for a really long time. I've had anything happen that can happen, basically, outside of losing $1 million on a special teams fumble on the last play of the game. But like, outside of like, obviously, when you have like a really good lineup and you get like an injury or an ejection, that is like the worst. Outside of that, I don't think anything pisses me off more than when I have a lineup where like I have very contrarian plays and they all go nuts, and then the 30+% owned just clear top plays on the slate absolutely sucks. So had one of those last night where I'm just like flipping through lineups and I see it was in the late game. I see I have 20 whatever minutes left, and it was Sabonis, and I look and it's just like, oh, I have 3% Anthony Edwards with 50. I have unowned Derek Jones Jr. with like 30. I have Jalen Smith in the same lineup at 2% with like 40. And then I have Christian Wood and I have Jordan Hawkins. And it's just like, when you hit on Jalen Smith and Derek Jones Jr. and Anthony Edwards all together in the same lineup, you're supposed to at least get a sweat out of it, even if you don't win.
Jordan Hawkins is really starting to get on my shit list.
He is very quickly becoming one of those opposite guys for me.
Yeah, I don't. It's really annoying. It's really annoying.
I didn't play much of him. I didn't play much of him the day he shot 2 for 13, but still scored 30 fantasy points. I jammed him in the next day when he sucked. Didn't play a lot of him last game when he got the start and did well. Did actually get 5th place on the night slate because of a lineup where I swapped to him, but still didn't have much of him. And then played a bunch of him yesterday where he once again sucks.
All right. I got to hit you with something that I learned this morning. Very random, has nothing to do with DFS. I don't think that'll surprise you at all. Are you familiar at all with former United States President Franklin Delano Roosevelt?
I mean, I know he was a president.
Do you know his wife's name?
Eleanor.
You are correct. Do you know
my rival high school? So that's why I know that one.
Okay. Do you know the interesting thing about the two of them?
He had polio?
No, they are related.
Oh, yeah. They're cousins.
Eleanor's father, Elliot Roosevelt, was the brother of FDR's father, James Roosevelt.
Yeah, they're cousins.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that, but I did know that.
He was president in 1933.
He was also president later than that.
Well, it started in 1933 until 1945. Could you imagine if that happened now? I don't feel like that. Like, it's amazing how much the weight of the Roosevelt name was just like, he still gets to be president.
Yeah, I think that would be a disqualifier now.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine if they found like if they had that paper trail for Obama?
Raptor, if that's what you're referring to.
It was okay back then. 1933.
Like, that's not that long ago.
Inside of 100 years.
Right. There are people still alive that were alive when the president was married to his cousin.
Yes. Yeah. And some of them are still like pretty sharp mentally. Now, they were like just born when he became the president.
Right.
You're getting pretty thin at the top after that, but that's
I mean, people born in like in the 1940s, like, he was still president.
Yeah. Like, obviously, I don't care. Like it's not changing anything for me. But
Well,
that would be
clearly.
quite the news story.
Yeah, like all the dumb shit that we get now, and then it's just like, oh yeah, and they're married to their cousin.
Yeah. Fifth cousins once removed. Although Eleanor's father being the brother of FDR's father just sounds way worse than
Yeah.
fifth cousins once removed.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you said that, I was like, I thought they were like distant cousins, not.
They hung out as kids like relatively regularly.
Well, I mean that makes sense. Like if you're not, it makes sense. Like it completely depends the context. I think like if you only see each other at like family dinners, then yeah, that's really weird. If it's just like, hey, this is Eleanor, like she's a family friend, and that's kind of just like how you're introduced, then it makes sense because like obviously you end up marrying people that you're like acquainted with.
Yeah, it's wild, dude. Wild.
But
I
yeah,
had
like
no idea.
if your introduction to her was like, oh yeah, she's part of the family, and then like as you get older, you start banging her, like that's different.
Yeah. 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 So where is it here? Teddy Roosevelt wrote them a letter a year after the wedding. That would be his niece. You and Eleanor are true and brave. Even he knew.
Do you think there's got to be incest somewhere in the Kennedy family? There's just so many of them. They're all so
like
successful.
in theory, it's everywhere.
Well, sure. Particularly
yeah.
like Alabama.
Yeah. Basically anywhere that could get a Bet 365 deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that Obi-Wan with a sentence that I mean, per the grandmother in Wedding Crashers, yeah, Eleanor had some other proclivities.
Did you know Madison Bumgarner dated someone named Madison Bumgarner?
I did. That's one of the weirdest things I've ever known.
Especially because he's from the middle of nowhere. So like you have the same last name. There's 12 people in your town. Yeah. It's not a common last name.
No, they're not both Jamie Smith or something like that. Yeah. No, I mean, just even dating another Bumgarner would have been just weird enough.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why I was like Madison obviously is just a whole other thing, but like,
yeah,
it's still like there's 14 people where you grew up. You have to be related if her last name is Bumgarner.
Are you sure that's not your sister?
Right.
Did dad just start a new family, like the next exit down the road? All right. Well,
it explains his anger issues.
Sure. Something like that. Oh, man. Well, one of my best friend's parents were Zimmer and Zimmerman before they married. Pretty crazy. I mean, that's, yeah. When you have a common name, like those ones are probably really weird, where it's just like Katie's previous name is Wilson. Like she could have very easily met any random other Wilson and never changed her name at all.
Right. Yeah. Like I don't think I'm running into any Scherers on the dating app.
I know quite confidently I'm not running into any other Englemans. That's for sure.
That's a real, I mean, I don't know about that. I sent you the picture. I went to school with a Josh Engleman.
Which is incredibly weird, but my spelling is way more rare.
EL. It's usually EL.
Yeah, and actually 2 N's is also very popular at the end.
I didn't catch how the kid I went to school with spelled it.
I think it was like spot on the same.
Okay, I'll say I didn't. I feel like I would have noticed if it was different.
Yeah, I'm almost positive it was the same, but yeah. There are way more ELs than LEs. That's it. You ready to talk basketball?
Getting
there. S&P hit them with it. And then they got married and they were Zimmerman and Zimmerwoman. That's good. All right. So
EMAC level joke there.
It is an EMAC level joke. So first game of the day, a little bit different because Milwaukee and Indiana are both on a back-to-back. We don't know the official status for either one of these guys. I'm assuming everybody for both teams is just including Chris Middleton. Whether or not that's true, we'll find out.
Well, Giannis is nice and rested too.
Yes, he is. I hate that so much.
Yeah, I mean, it was awful. Also, that was just like that's kind of how I'm running in DFS right now. I looked at one of the turbo slates, and Giannis is like 26% owned. I'm like, oh, how much Giannis did I play? Oh, I played 50%, and he's smashing. Like that's good. Literally 15 seconds later, I get the alert. Giannis ejected. It's like, oh, we're just doing that.
I said it on the process show this morning. Something like that should never result in the removal of someone from the game. You want to stop taunting and make it a shot in the ball. Fine. They should never be like, you got to go now. That's insanity.
There's all this emphasis on injury reporting, and fans hate basketball because you rest the players. And then they're like, oh yeah, Giannis made a gesture sort of in the direction of his opponent. You can't watch him play anymore. Fuck your money.
You want to penalize them for it? Go for it. I get it. You can't just fucking toss people for this.
Right.
It's just like that. The punishment does not fit there has to be an added level of this so that's the same thing as if he punched him. You shouldn't be able to also have the same output.
Yeah, and in the pool report, the ref's level of just not caring was really annoying. The reporter, basically asked what the first tech was for, and he said profanity at the ref. And then they asked about the second one, and they said, well, he was taunting him, and per the rules, that was his second technical foul. And when you get 2 technical fouls, you are ejected from the game. And it's just well, yeah, you could have just not given him the second technical foul there.
Just it's so silly. It's so silly. I get what they're trying to stop, but they've gone too far the other direction. So annoying. So anyway, we're going to assume that the Milwaukee Bucks are at full strength today, including Chris Middleton. Giannis should be well rested. He is 10,700 today. Very, very different way to get to Giannis today than what we've been seeing throughout the year. He is also projected for 42% ownership on DraftKings, 67 on FanDuel. Let's just start on the Giannis side here. Power forward center eligibility, 10-7. I believe he's the most expensive guy on the slate. I just want to double check that. Yeah. Halliburton is at 10K. Giannis is at 10-7. The only two guys above 10K. Seems like you just kind of have to have at least one of those guys in everything.
One of
him or Halliburton.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, raw points on slates like this just matter so much. We talk about it on your larger slates. A lot of times these pay up options aren't that big of a priority because you have an abundance of $7,500, $8K, $8,500 guys that can go for 50. And obviously just the more of those guys you have, the more likely it is that they start going for 50. And so on larger slates, you can get into, there's a good chance that the optimal lineup has more mid-range guys. Because if you get those mid-range guys to go for 50 plus, you can get better, you get 5K guys with them instead of 3K guys. But on these slates, if Giannis just goes for, we have him projected for 55.5 DraftKings points. If he goes for 55, or 60, it's very likely that is just a score that you need because there's not that many mid-range guys. And so, sure, Damian Lillard can still go for 50 plus. There are still guys that can do that, but there's just fewer of them. So it's less likely any of them do. And when they all just go for, 40, 45, 48, and then you have Giannis sitting there at 58, you needed to find a way to get Giannis usually.
And not only that, I love this spot for him. One, probably a little salty for last night. Certainly a little bit more rested than he would have been. And the Indiana defense is bad. Their offense has been exceptional. Number 1 in the league, if I remember correctly, throughout the season. Defense is in the mid-20s. This is a great spot for Giannis.
Agreed.
After that, on a 4-game slate, the most we have of anybody on the DraftKings side, 14% to Brook Lopez, 14 to Dame, 12 to Jay Crowder, who played 37 minutes yesterday. On the FanDuel side, it's way different. 30% to Lopez, 38 to Dame, 24 to Crowder. Even Middleton's getting a little bit of love. I don't see too much from the Milwaukee side that I want because the moment you go to Giannis, it's now incredibly difficult to also go to Dame in that lineup.
Right.
Brook Lopez is fine at 5,800, but not going to be the type of guy that's just soaking up ownership. I did think Jay Crowder would probably get a little bit more love just because of price and positionality. The flexibility works. I just don't see a lot from Milwaukee that excites me.
Yeah, and also just to finalize Giannis, and the difference just in slate sizes, 40% chance of being optimal today. On most slates this year that he's been on so far, he's been 2%. So yeah. Just that much better of a play. Dame, like you said, it's not that you can't play Dame and Giannis together. It's that your lineup is probably going to look like shit if you do. Dame, 14% to be optimal, 14% ownership. I do think he makes a ton of sense in non-Giannis lineups.
Yeah.
And again, not saying you can't play them together or anything if you find a way to do it, but he's a very logical, oh, I didn't get to Giannis in this lineup. If Giannis has an underwhelming game, there's a good chance that Dame has a bigger game than projected. So there is some, I don't, negative correlation is not the right word, because like there's also positive correlation where, between teammates, which we've talked about a lot, I think gets overlooked. The game just ends up being higher scoring than usual. Refs have a quick whistle, game goes to overtime. There is positive correlation, but there is the aspect from scoring where if you have the game where Dame knocks down 10 3-pointers, Giannis is probably kind of just chilling and watching Dame play.
Exactly. I got to a bunch of Dame here. So like I'm relatively neutral to Giannis. I got 30% on my run. I also got the 30% of Dame at 14% ownership. That to me is perfect. I don't mind that in any way. If I'm going to take a stand, taking a stand on Dame in this sort of situation feels like the stand to take. But after that, I basically don't have these guys. 2% of Jay Crowder, 6% of Brook Lopez, 5% of Bobby Portis. I don't, there's just so much of the performance of the Milwaukee Bucks goes to Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo that I'm not surprised at all that I'm not getting to much else. You need someone like Brook Lopez that can get there with, like 6 blocks and a couple made threes to really get there. Whereas like, you're just not going to get enough offense out of Pat Connaughton or Marshawn Beauchamp or whatever you're trying to go to.
Yeah, completely agree. Nothing looks great. I am interested in Portis at 5,500.
Yeah.
Power forward center, he obviously produces on a per minute basis. You just need to get those minutes, but he's a pretty interesting one just at that price and ownership, because he is kind of at least different, or not even kind of, he is different than guys like Crowder and Connaughton and Beasley, where he's doing stuff when he's on the floor. It's, a matter of does he get enough minutes to be a good play, but and he is obviously a little bit more expensive than those guys, but those are players where, they're 0.8 give or take fantasy point per minute guys. Portis is over a fantasy point per minute and not getting the ownership. So I do think he's probably the most interesting of those like secondary pieces to me.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. 6% ownership coming into Middleton, 13 on FanDuel. I don't see that at all. You are just praying that he makes every shot he takes.
Right. Agreed. Yeah, I was surprised that 6,200 he was getting that much.
Like we saw him play 21 minutes in back-to-back games on the 3rd and the 6th. He sat out yesterday's game. I assume he's playing today. He also sat the front end of the back-to-back on the 29th and the 30th. I mean, what's the dream scenario? He plays 24 minutes today at 6,200. Like the position's great, but
and I mean, to be fair, on DraftKings he is only 6%, but
yeah,
still, it's guys like that are always tough because generally you get your median projection and, it's basketball, so it's normally distributed and you have right tail, you have a left tail, whatever. With somebody like Middleton, you don't have that right tail. So it becomes difficult. You need, that's the kind of thing you actually do want to pay attention to also. Like we talk a lot about trusting the data and, for me personally, I don't do much in the way of manual adjustments to anything at all. That's the kind of thing where you do want to keep an eye on it, because like when you're running sims and you're running stuff, if whatever Chris Middleton's standard deviation is, it's treating it like it's a real standard deviation, and he can go out there and be two plus standard deviations above the median, which he really can't if he's not playing those minutes.
He can in just to be more specific, he can in performance. Sure. He can't in playing time.
Right. Like he can in per minute production.
Yeah.
But he can't in playing time. So it's going to overestimate his ability to be in the winning lineup, which like I think you're seeing, if you look at the boom bust tool right now, which is what made me think of it, 12% chance of being optimal, 6% aggregate ownership. That is actually misleading because it is assuming that if Chris Middleton's projected for 20 minutes, that there are some games where he's playing 28.
Yeah, essentially. And that's just full stop impossible. Right. There's no way he's playing those minutes today. So think about that a little bit. But I mean, to me, it's Dame and Giannis as the guys that I'm going to get to the most. And I'm cool with that. I am curious, though, with me getting 30% of Dame, who I'm not getting to in these next 2 games. Or the next 3 teams. I haven't looked at anything else.
Yeah. I'm interested to see. So I just ran my stuff, and I definitely put together a really bad field of lineups. I just can't figure out why, but
I
I have
can.
lineups with a simulated ROI right now nearing 10,000%.
Oh,
So
you should play that one, dude.
yeah. So I definitely like screwed something up. I just haven't figured it out.
You should. I mean, that's the ROI you're looking for. The
Yeah, I mean
guaranteed
this is
victory lineup.
yeah, I mean I had to have just projected the field to just play guys that are not playing.
Yeah, you let YouTube chat pick their lineups
Right.
and then you played against them.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Ben the Better is playing every other lineup.
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay, so we have to sort of touch on the rest of these guys. Assuming the same lineup as normal, is there anybody from Milwaukee that you see as just like a complete zero?
I mean Beasley at 4,700 is really tough.
Yeah, minutes coming down. That's really the issue here. 25 yesterday. Obviously, no Middleton, so that like sort of buoys him. 14 the game before that, 22, 25. It was 31, 31, 31 in those first three games, but it seems like they're dialing him down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we only have him projected for 14 and a half DraftKings points. Like,
I have him at 18,
he's gonna be really
and I
hard to
still
get
don't
to.
get him.
What'd you say?
I have him at 18, and I still don't like get him.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at. Was like, even if it were a little bit higher, I don't think he's really going to show up.
No, I think we're on the same page there.
And before Beasley drops 30.
Yeah. Like, obviously, I don't think that Marchand Beauchamp is going to have a huge minutes projection today if Middleton is playing, but at 3,300 shooting guard, small forward, like that kind of price and positionality can work its way into things on a 2-game slate. Campaign is obviously a tough sell for me, but again, 3,700, you can stomach that a little bit more. Everybody else, I think, is fine. Honestly, I think like Pat Connaughton might, if it wasn't for shooting guard small forward, he might actually be my answer of like guy I definitely don't want, but even he's going to get like 5% ownership.
Yeah, and it's still, shooting guard small forward, he's cheap. Especially like when you compare him to Crowder and he's getting half the ownership on a 2-game slate. There's at least a viable like explanation for why you would play him. I'm still really confused what I did with these lineups. I can't figure it out.
Should try being better.
Yeah.
Guys, the NBA treat promo that you have been hearing about is no longer. We do not have an active promo right now, but that is no reason to not sign up at Stokastic. Go to stokastic.com. We've got a section on the left side of the screen where you can choose whatever package you're looking for, see all of the details, whether you're looking for NFL for the rest of the season, NBA right now, NHL. We've got a lot of stuff for you. It's just we don't have that NBA treat promo any longer, but please come join us. Go to stokastic.com, sign up, come hang out with us. You're getting premium stats, potentially Sims tools, depending on which sport we're talking about, potentially lineup generators, depending on which sport we're talking about, all sorts of boom bust advanced data analytics on the back end, premium Discord if you want it. Come on in, come hang out, everybody. You figure it out now?
No, we're up to 35,000% now.
Oh, upgraded. Hey, there you go. You turn the dial the other direction. I like it. I like it.
I have no idea what the
is that is it a real lineup?
Yeah, it's a good lineup.
You should write that bad boy down. You got to make sure you play it. That's the nuts, man.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's the same one that I had before, but yeah, Tyrese Halliburton, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Franz Wagner, Jalen Smith, Oneko Okongwu, Markelle Fultz, Paolo Banchero, Jalen Johnson for all the money.
There we go. Print it.
Yeah, it's a very chalky, highly projected lineup that is going to just boat race everybody.
Yeah, has to win with that ROI.
Yeah, I have no idea. So I'm not going to have personal exposures to the show.
Indiana Pacers. Obviously, and by the way, this game, 12-point total higher than the other game. Pacers also on a back-to-back. Let's just assume that everybody that played yesterday is in. We got a really big game out of Jalen Smith. We got a really big game out of Benedict Mathurin, who played 38 and a half minutes, which, congrats to you if you projected that, because this is a guy that was, spot on 22 every game for the entire season until that point. Lots of ownership coming into the Pacers side. 25% to Mathurin, 12 to Bruce Brown, 48 to your boy, Jalen Smith, 20 to my boy, Miles Turner, 27 to Toppin, 49 to Tyrese Halliburton, and comparable ownership on the FanDuel side. I would have asked you this question in a different way, but who's your favorite play from Indiana?
I mean, Halliburton.
Yeah.
If you can get there, he's 10K. It is going to be tough probably to get him with Giannis, but you do have like just cheap plays you can mix in from Indiana and from Milwaukee. 50% or 49% ownership, 47% chance of being optimal. So he looks really good. I do also really like Jalen Smith. He's getting 48% ownership, but I think it's more or less warranted on this slate. I mentioned yesterday that I thought he was somebody you should just continuously be playing at this price tag. Power forward eligible, 4,100. When he's playing 18 minutes a night, he's still like 5 to 6xing his salary just because he's around a 1.25 fantasy point per minute guy. Then you have games where Miles Turner gets in foul trouble and he plays more. You have games where, like last night, where he just erupts. Like, he's underpriced. And, it sucks that he's going to be 50% owned today, but I think it's warranted.
I think I kind of like the disparity between he and Obi Toppin, and it makes for like a really interesting decision point for the Pacers. 4,100 for Smith, power forward center, 4K for Toppin, power forward center. Smith, the way better per minute guy, but also likely to be projected 3, 4, 5 minutes below Toppin, which allows him to like close that gap a bit. If you're getting half the ownership, I kind of like the idea of just getting to a little bit more Toppin.
Yeah, agreed. And I didn't even realize, because I knew Miles Turner had a good game yesterday, so I assumed he played real minutes. Turner only played 23. Smith played 25. He got a very extended run in the second half. So you shouldn't be expecting that to be the norm. But it is good to see that, like, if Jalen Smith is playing well, he actually can steal minutes from Miles Turner, as opposed to it being, like, no matter what you do, your ass is going back to the bench the minute the Turner is rested and ready to come back in. So that is good to see. And I'm with you on Toppin. Only played 19 minutes yesterday. He had played 27 3/4 the game before that. Extremely volatile playing time. Jalen Smith is clearly the better play in terms of projection, but you are getting around half the ownership going to Obi Toppin.
Yeah.
I do think right now I think I probably prefer Smith at 48% to Toppin at 28.
I'm getting them both, so I prefer them both.
Sure, yeah, and I have no idea who I'm getting, obviously.
I'm really getting to Turner, though. 20% ownership here. I got him at 58%. I do have him in for 29 minutes. I am a little like, I don't know what the goal minutes are for Miles Turner right now. He's passed 30 minutes this season in 2 of the 7 games, or 2 of the 8 games they've played.
I'm pretty sure Indiana's been in a lot of blowouts.
They have. I think 29 minutes or 30 minutes for Miles Turner is like the correct projection for him right now.
So something like 29 Turner, 19 Smith or something.
Yeah. So like, I don't have any regrets there, but it is creating a situation where I'm getting to a lot of Turner. He's also been fantastic. 1.35 fantasy points per minute so far this season. I got him at 1.24 for the game. With a total like this, it's going to be a little bit higher just by default. So I'm loving this portion of the team.
Their last competitive game where you got like normal rotations, so not yesterday where Jalen Smith stole minutes. You got 27 from Turner, 21 from Smith. Turner lost 3 minutes and 46 seconds in the second quarter to foul trouble.
There you go.
Obviously you're not projecting him to never be in foul trouble. So I think something like 28-20, 29-19 makes sense.
All right. 25% ownership coming into Mathurin, only shooting guard eligible, 5,300. I don't think he looks like a great play, but shit, if he plays his way into 38 minutes, he is.
I mean, it's nice to see that is on the table.
Yeah.
He played 24 in that competitive game against Charlotte. They closed with a kind of weird lineup there. They went Halliburton, Turner, Brown, Hield, and Nesmith. I think there's just going to be times where Mathurin's playing well and the Nesmith part becomes Mathurin. I think from a projection standpoint, expecting around like 24 probably makes sense, but certainly has the potential to play quite a bit more, as we saw yesterday. And he is pretty cheap.
And then you get Bruce Brown, point guard, small forward, 6,100. His minutes really aren't going anywhere in any sort of competitive game. Only 12% owned, but he's kind of at the tippy top of what his price can be.
Yeah, I mean, you can at least count on the minutes for him. The positional eligibility is nice. Point guard, small forward. We do have him going under owned right now, probably because of the positions. 22% chance of being optimal, only 12% owned. So that does look interesting. But yeah, his price tag is fully where it needs to be. Like we only have him projected for like 4x, and we still have him going under-owned. So it has to just be that you can put him into every lineup that, like, at whatever type of lineup you're building, Bruce Brown fits.
Yeah. There's a reason why Bogdan Bogdanovic is going to be a guy today, and that price and his price and positionality seems to be pretty unique. What do we do with like Nesmith and like, can you even go to Nesmith, Nembhard, Hield with any sort of confidence?
Confidence, no.
Also, why is Buddy Hield 66? I guess he's been playing well. 6,600 for Buddy Hield.
Yeah, that's a good question. Also, yeah. So I like, you can't go to them with confidence. The minutes are just so volatile there. On a 2-game slate, they are sort of interesting pieces if you're playing a lot of lineups, just to be like, okay, Nesmith is 1% owned. I can play 10% and, maybe get that Charlotte game where he plays almost the entire second half and gets to 25 minutes. Same, for Nembhard or Hield, I think is a little more difficult to get to probably because of the price, but he does have shooting guard, small forward eligibility. But yeah, I think they're all very similar in that they aren't good plays, but they're at least functional parts of this rotation. They're not getting any ownership on a 2-gamer.
Yeah. It's a weird team, man. It's a weird team. Could anybody, like, the closing lineup can just be basically anybody.
It's kind of like the Kings.
As long as it includes Halliburton.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Kings. The closing lineup is Halliburton, one of Turner or Jalen Smith, probably Bruce Brown, and then 2 other dudes.
Yep.
And those 2 other dudes can be essentially anybody.
Yeah, it's who's been playing the best is probably the answer.
So that's and that is probably the answer. And from a tournament standpoint, that's a really actually appealing thing and it goes back to what we were just saying about Buddy Hield and Nesmith and Nembhard. Like, they're not good plays. They don't project well. It is nice when you can say, all right, Buddy Hield is clearly overpriced at 6,600. But if Buddy Hield is having a Buddy Hield day where he's just knocking down his threes, he's going to play 6-7 minutes more than he's projected for, because that's how Indiana runs their rotation. It is really nice. Like, taking on, especially on like a 2-game slate, throwing darts at guys that don't project well and have volatile minutes is a lot more appealing when, if they play well, they get more minutes, as opposed to if they play well, the coach says, okay, great, thanks. Now get your ass back on the bench. We're putting the starter back in.
Yeah. And they can basically do it with their entire lineup.
Right. Are you cool playing Turner and Smith together?
Yes, because of Jalen Smith being power forward eligible.
Yep. Jalen Smith being power forward eligible and Jalen Smith only being 4,100 to me. Like, at 7,100, you don't necessarily need Miles Turner to play full minutes. He's a really good point per minute guy. He can get there anyway. But even if he plays, let's say 29 minutes, which is what you would probably like if you're playing him at 7,100, 19 minutes of Jalen Smith at 4,100 can still pretty easily be getting you, 26, 30 DraftKings points, which is really nice on a 2-gamer.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't, on a day like today, it really just doesn't take much over your median projection. Like, you don't, right. A 60th percentile outcome is like probably good enough.
Right. Like, 26 points in 19 minutes is 1.37 DraftKings points per minute. Jalen Smith, off the top of my head, I think has been about 1.25, 1.3 this year. You're not talking about
1.39. You were almost on the dot.
Yeah. So, you're just talking about him doing what he's done.
Yeah. Anything else for the Pacers?
Nope.
Vivid Picks. They are the sponsor of this show. We talk a lot about pick'em sites. This is a pick'em site. And I know that doesn't sound like exciting to you guys, but you have to see it through the lens of money. You should be trying to maximize the amount of money you have in these situations. That's what we're doing. That's what we play DFS and everything for, right? We're trying to maximize our money.
Oh, I thought I was just trying to make my life as hard as I could.
That too. I was also trying to add depression and anxiety to my life, which seems to be working perfectly. If you're looking to do that as well, stick around for Vivid Picks. Now, that's not what I'm saying. The key piece here that everybody needs to remember, we all are chasing this bigger prize pool. It also helps to start with a bigger bankroll and more money. And taking advantage of these deals when they pop up, it's the way to do it. You can get a deposit match of up to $300 by clicking the link in the description here. So if you put in 100, they'll give you 100. Put in 200, they give you 200. Put in 3, they'll match with 3. We talk about pick'em sites like Prize Picks and Underdog all the time. You should be hitting every deal that you can. Get the bonus money, figure out what you like, and then if you need to, move around to the places that you like the most or fit you the best. But in this case, for Vivid Picks, you can put in 300 and get another 300. That's a great way to get started. Standard match is usually 100 for 100. So this is triple that. You also get a $25 secure play. So if your first entry loses, you get refunded up to that $25 in Vivid Site credit. So don't overthink this one, guys. Go start up at a pick'em site and get yourself some extra cash. Figure out what you like the most and move forward. But for now, sign up at Vivid Picks using the link in the description or in chat.
I figured it out.
What's up?
I uploaded my ownership projections instead of my point projections.
Okay, that should help, right?
Yeah, so like when you have a Nekwo Okongwu projected for 65 DraftKings points, it gives you a really high ROI when he's not 100% owned.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably only scored 65 once in his life if he ever has. So it'd be a good day to get him for 65, though. That's for sure. Shame you're not going to be able to use those numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next game.
I was extremely confused.
Next game up, Hawks and Magic. Hawks are 3.5-point favorites, not in Orlando, tipping off in the Mexico City Arena. So
my immediate
playing at elevation.
My immediate thought was like, oh, the fence is really short and they're in altitude.
My immediate thought was, I hope this arena does not catch on fire again. I think it was this one, at least. Yeah, it was definitely in Mexico. Assume it's this one. So not a home game for the Orlando Magic, but they are the home team for Atlanta. Everybody that is available, everybody that can be available is available for the Hawks for today. I don't think any of these guys that are out. Oh, Wes Matthews might play for them down the line, but I doubt it. Lots of ownership coming to Atlanta here. 50 to Bogdanovich, 30 to Capella, 30 to Hunter, 25 to Murray, 30 to Jalen Johnson, 60 to Onyeka Okongwu, 30 to Bay, 36 to Young. Every single key person in their rotation, which is a rotation of 8 guys, is basically 25 to 60% owned. You have to have all of Atlanta. There's not a bad play to me on Atlanta. There are some guys that I think are great plays on Atlanta. But across the board, I mean, they only play 8 dudes. You got to have them all on a 2-gamer.
Yeah, and they're not even expensive. They look fantastic. Starting with Okongwu, who does not have a 65 DraftKings point projection, but does have a 25 DraftKings point projection at 4,200, getting 66% ownership, 50% chance of being optimal. So, sure, he's going over owned, but he's optimal half the time. You don't have as much opportunity cost at center because it's a 2-game slate. There are still plenty of good center plays, obviously. You have Capella, his teammate. You have Turner, we already talked about. Lopez is fine, but Lopez isn't a ridiculously appealing center or anything. Orlando, doesn't have anybody super appealing. Goga's whatever. So there's just not as much opportunity cost at the position today. Okongwu looks great. We know that he's been splitting minutes with Capella. Last game, you got 22 or 21.5 from Capella, 25 from Okongwu. I think it was the game before that. You got 28 from Capella, 20 for Okongwu. But at 4,200, even if you get 20 minutes, Okongwu is probably fine. Just like Jalen Smith at 4,100, kind of the same idea. The difference between Okongwu and Smith is that Okongwu is more likely to steal minutes from Capella than Smith is to steal minutes from Turner. But it's the same kind of thing, good point per minute guy. He's underpriced for the low end of his role. And when he gets those 25, 26-minute games, you kind of just have to have him. Capella at 5,700, sort of the same thing. When he plays 20, 22 minutes, you're probably not going to really want him at that price, but he still could get there. But if you get the 28-minute Capella game, he's probably going for like 30-plus DraftKings points. Yeah. So they both look really good. The backcourt with Young and Murray looks good. They're going to be a little bit more difficult to get to than like Okongwu just because of price. And, you have to keep in mind, you do have Giannis and Halliburton from the other game. But 36% ownership coming into Young at 9,300, 36% optimal. Murray, we have going a little bit under-owned at 8,200, point guard and shooting guard. 25% ownership, 35% chance of being optimal. If you do end up going with a little bit more balanced build, those are guys that I think you're absolutely looking at. If you're getting away from Giannis and maybe Halliburton and going to like, well, what if Dame has a big game? Or, if you're getting away from those guys, you're looking at it like, okay, well, who can conceivably give me 55 DraftKings points? And Young and Murray, are basically the guys from this team.
My most exposed guy for the Hawks right now is Saddiq Bey. So that's happening. Small forward, power forward, 4,300. That's great value.
Yeah, he's like, even coming off the bench, he's still getting, mid to upper 20s in minutes. his optimal percentage is in line with his ownership at 31%. So yeah, I think that looks good. He's getting like 2/3 the ownership of Bogdanovic.
Yeah, 54% to Bogdanovic, shooting guard, small forward. That like his positionality is why this is happening. 54% scares the shit out of me because this is a guy that like really does just play 24 or 25 minutes.
Yeah, and 20 is on the table. Like,
yeah,
you can just have the game break where he plays 20. But at that price, it's so hard to get away. Like, if he were like 5K, he'd still be popular. 5,200, he'd still be popular because of the positions. But 4,400, it's tough.
Yeah, I got 45% of him. I got 35 of Capella, 41 of Murray, 71 of Bay as of right now. But in the 20s on Okongwu, in the 20s on Trae Young. Like, I've got all these guys. The only guy that I don't have a ton of is Jalen Johnson. Power forward only, 6,300, 30% owned. I just think he's kind of in like a positional and price no man's land. Like, it's only one spot. He's priced appropriately. He's been a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy so far this season. I don't know if we should be believing that is a rate that continues. I think that probably comes down a little bit to, somewhere around a fantasy point per minute guy. I think he's totally fine. I certainly want to have him, but he's the one guy I look at for Atlanta where it's just like, I wouldn't mind being lighter there.
You said DeJounte, right?
No, Jalen Johnson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I actually don't have a single Jalen Johnson lineup at the slate started right now.
I got 14% with 32% over. I think it's just that single possession is really limiting on a day like today.
Yeah, agreed. As far as the rest of Atlanta goes, I actually it does scare me not getting any Jalen Johnson. Like, I would certainly be happy if that turned into, half the field instead of none. But I agree with you. I think it's the power forward. It's twofold. One, you can only play him at one position. And then two, that position has Jalen Smith. It has Obi Toppin. It has Sadiq Bey for $2,000 less. So
DeAndre Hunter too.
What'd you say?
DeAndre Hunter too,
right,
just from this team.
So that's the problem. Is not only can he only play one position, which just limits, where you can put him in your lineup. It's the position where you're just constantly paying down so that you can pay up for. Also, Giannis plays power forward. So you can pay up for Giannis, Halliburton, Young, Dame. Like, that's just there's so much value at that position. It makes it tough to get to Jalen Johnson. So again, like, if I don't get any, I understand why, and it's just. If Jalen Johnson breaks the slate, he breaks the slate. I don't win today. I don't win most days, whatever. But
we're also about to mention Banchero and Mo Wagner on the Orlando side. Like, it's not a short slate of power forwards.
Yeah. As far as the rest of the team, I'm getting to them. 60% Okongwu, 44% Trae Young, so a little, or 46%. So I'm a little heavy there. The one thing that stands out other than Jalen Johnson for me right now, and again, it's scary, but I like it. 44% Sadiq Bey. So getting over the field on him, 30% Bogdanovic. So not quite matching the field's combined exposure, but pretty close, and just flipping it where I'm playing Bogdanovic the way the field's playing Bey, and I'm playing Bey pretty close to the way the field's playing Bogdanovic. I think that's pretty appealing. Like, I like that it worked out like that. It makes me think that I'm doing that stuff is doing like what I would like it to do in my process, at least. DeAndre Hunter, 26%, so pretty close to the field there. 22% Capella, a little below the field, no problem with that, but still getting him, and then 20% DeJounte.
Schedule for the rest of the day, folks. NFL strategy show coming up next at 11 a.m., but we have like 10 more shows after that. At 1:30, you get the NFL Rainmakers show. At 2 o'clock, you get NHL strategy. 4:30 gets you the Owner's Box live show. Adam and I come back at 5 p.m. for the deeper dive. Live Before Lock NBA edition from 6 to 7. And then the NFL Live Before Lock for tonight at 7:15. So much content for today. Don't miss it, guys. You just want to be on our YouTube channel all day long. S&P, well, let's hit on this quick since that's a real question. Thoughts on Capella Okongwu in the same lineup?
I don't mind.
I'm way less likely to get this one since it's center, but the price for Capella makes it easier.
Yeah, I wouldn't set a rule against it. I just know I'm not going to get it nearly as much because it's so specific the way they have to fit into the lineup. Whereas with the Miles Turner and Jalen Smith lineups, they kind of don't, from a just putting them in your lineup standpoint, they don't interact with each other because you can just play Smith at forward.
Yeah. Yeah, if it shows, like, I assume I'll have one or two of it, and I won't even think about it too much. Closing it out for Orlando. This one's tricky. John Isaac probable, no Gary Harris, Wendell Carter Jr. still out, Markelle Fultz questionable, and that Q tag is massive because Markelle Fultz is probably the best play on today's slate. $5,100 point guard. If he's available, that price tag just isn't correct. 75% projected ownership right now, and I've got more than that.
Yeah, 75% projected ownership. I do not have more than that, but I still have 58%. So
yeah,
still looking very, very good if he's in. And if he's out, obviously that's going to open up some other stuff. But yeah, huge piece of news, and may or may not have it by lock. So even though it's a 2-game slate, be ready to be at your computer all day.
Yeah. Like you'll have enough salary across Atlanta and Orlando to that like swaps won't be like finding $500 to get to Jalen Suggs or is not going to be like the biggest impediment in the world.
I don't think
still an annoyance.
I don't think you have to adjust your strategy for Markelle Fultz news if we don't have it yet. Like this isn't a slate where you're going to be like, oh, well, I need to make sure I leave open spots in the late game. Like you're going to have them.
Are you assuming Goga continues to start and we get a split of minutes between he and Mo Wagner because they are 6% and 9% owned respectively?
Yeah, that's the Wagner ownership's pretty interesting to me. And I'm getting 12%. What?
He closed and played 26 minutes in their most recent game and can very easily do that again with great eligibility.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why he's only getting 9% ownership. Right now, I'm getting about 12%. That's what we have as optimal percentage at 13. I wouldn't even be mad at getting more. Like it's kind of tricky to talk about because like it seems like he should be getting more ownership.
Yeah.
But if you told me that he actually is 9% owned, I would really like to have more than 12% and just be getting Wagner because at 40, like he's another good point per minute guy. He has power forward eligibility. He's just he's a more expensive Jalen Smith in that even if he just plays 20 minutes, he's going to be fine at this price tag a pretty good chunk of the time. And then the games where he does get more, he can pretty quickly get to like, oh, you needed Mo Wagner today.
Yeah, like they don't care about Goga Bitadze in any real way. Like if Mo Wagner's playing well, he'll just stay on the floor.
Right. Mo Wagner is their actual rotation piece.
Yes.
And the other really big thing, you and I had harped on this a lot and said, that there's that the range of outcomes was still kind of interesting from that first game that Goga started. Because remember, Mo Wagner picked up his 5th foul in the 4th quarter. He went to the bench, Goga came back in and closed. When Wagner left the game with his 5th foul, his rotation in the second half had matched his rotation in the first half. So the assumption, and I think the correct assumption, was that he probably was about to come out of the game anyway, but there was a chance that he was going to be the closing center. Yeah. Then you go to the next game, and he's the closing center. Like he played his rotation in the second half last game was the exact same as his rotation in the previous game, except he didn't pick up a 5th foul. So there is the chance that Orlando's plan is Goga starts the first, he closes the second, he starts the third, and he does not come back.
Yep. Yeah. I went 25-23 Goga to Mo Wagner. We'll see what I end up with when I get to the end. But it won't be any more extreme towards Goga, at least. I could see dropping to 24-24, but I find those two guys to be like the sort of most interesting guys on this slate just because of their lack of ownership.
Yep. Yeah, and we have Wagner at 23 minutes right now, which I think is perfect.
Yeah. Paolo and Franz are both like 35 to 40% owned. I think that's like exactly where they should be. They're just like key pieces of the slate that are sort of uneventful too.
Sorry, I was double checking my Wagner projection. What'd you say?
Banchero and Franz, like they're both like 35, 40% owned. And like that seems perfect for what we're doing here today.
Yeah, I have a lot less Banchero, which I think is probably attributed again to the value at power forward, that just being a spot where I'm paying down. Like if I look at my overall exposures, I have a ton of Obi Toppin, which like 80%, which again, wouldn't mind if that comes down, but I think it's a perfectly fine play. So like I'm paying down for him. I'm playing a lot of Sadiq Bey. Like I said, I'm getting, 36% Giannis. I'm getting 32% Jalen Smith. So it's kind of that power forward. I'm either paying down or I'm getting Giannis, I think. So that makes it a little bit, that just kind of cuts out how much Banchero I can get to, but that doesn't mean he's a bad play. 34% chance of being optimal, 43% ownership. Wagner at 7,400. I'm also under the field, getting 14% of him as well.
Okay.
Guessing it's the same thing, that I'm just kind of paying down at forward and paying up at other positions.
How do you feel about Suggs and Anthony? These are two guys that are 20% owned that I'm just like not getting to. And then we're going to get out of here in terms of NFL strategy show coming up next.
I'm over the field on Suggs right now, getting to 30%, 5,600 point guard, shooting guard. We have him going a bit underowned. 28% chance of being optimal, 21% ownership. So I think that's why I'm getting there. Cole Anthony, I'm also getting to 28%. Same kind of thing, 20% ownership, 27% chance of being optimal. So we just haven't projected to go underowned, and I think that's being reflected in my exposures. And
I don't
obviously
expect
they both look better if Fultz is out.
I don't expect to get to Ingles or Anthony Black or anything unless Fultz ends up out.
Nope.
This one's pretty cut and dry for Orlando.
Are you getting Goga?
I have 19% Goga right now.
I have 0 Goga.
And I'm very happy with 19. If I knew he was 6, 19 would be right up my alley. It is what I would want in that scenario. This is kind of a fun 2-gamer, especially if we other than the Fultz news, if this just maintained, it's like a pretty manageable slate too.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun slate. Lemons 50 in chat said Wagner would have closed the game before if he didn't foul out. So that's kind of maybe. I think it's really
probably.
Really yeah. No, seeing the rotation in the second game, I think the answer now is probably. But in general, it's so useful in DFS to just try and avoid deciding that something was going to happen when you have no idea. Yeah. There's still volatility here. You shouldn't be approaching this as if Mo Wagner is absolutely the closing center. He's probably the closing center.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's in general, it's just thinking that something like that is absolute is going to just make you make worse plays.
Yeah. Having some ambiguity in it is actually better for you to a degree. You're just going to be more accurate in the long run.
Yeah, because
little 2-gamer.
The difference is if you are convinced, I don't even know who coaches Orlando now, but if you have their phone number and they texted you and said, "Oh, we were going to close with Mo Wagner. He is our closing center." You're projecting him for 26 minutes. You're projecting Goga for 22.
Yeah,
or 25.
Jamal Mosley, by the way.
What'd you say?
Jamal Mosley.
Yeah. Or 25, 23 in Wagner's favor. So it does matter. Yeah. You do need that.
Yeah.
Ambiguity.
Article and lineup generator video coming out in a bit.
Yep.
Alrighty. Contenders videos already out. Check them out. Prize Picks. Told you guys to follow me on OddsShopper. Hit it again. 6-0 this week. It's fun stuff. I'll have another one out shortly. Waiting on fantasy score props, which just got posted. So you might see me shortly in the Prize Pick streets. Hit the like button if you haven't done it yet. Subscribe to the channel. NFL Strategy Show coming up next. Shout out to Vivid Picks for being the sponsor. Adam and I will talk to you at 5 p.m. Peace.